trying to think back to the beginning of it. East West Bookshop used to be in Menlo Park on El Camino, where Feldman's Books is still there, I think, in a really little funky building just past where you turn off to the Stanford Shopping Center, as I recall. The East West Bookshop in that incarnation actually was a critical part of my getting onto the spiritual path. Because in 1966, 67, 68, 69, when I lived in this area and was just beginning to wake up to the spiritual life, it was the only way to find out anything. No internet, no e-books, and also just the whole world of metaphysics and spiritual teachers and so on was just beginning to crack open. And that place was the place where if you wanted to know anything, and it was all books then, because there were books. There was nothing else. That's what I was saying. It was the only way to find things out. And that store had been created as a labor of love by a woman named Virginia Sharfman, I believe, and her husband. It might have started about 1950, I think, because I think they'd had it 25 or 30 years by the time we took it. And she had the vision, and I do think it was a partnership, which is they had an interest in metaphysics. Think about the 50s. That was a very unusual thing to be interested in, and they were somewhat eccentric people, but in a positive, interesting way. And they got that building, and then they just started researching and stocking it with the most interesting and the most important spiritual books that they could find. And she sat at the desk, and it had, as it has now, an enormously loyal following, because it was a lifeline to that way of thinking, which is what it became for me too. Every time you wanted to understand something, and even libraries didn't really have that much, you would go to East West Bookshop and either stand in the aisle and read it or buy it and take it home. Time passed, and Swami Kriyananda's parents lived in Atherton, and he, of course, is a great bookophile himself, both an author and a reader. And when he would come to see his parents, he would always go over to East West Bookshop too, to see what else was happening and just to sort of be in the atmosphere. And he and Virginia Sharfman became very good friends. He appreciated her, she appreciated him. And then one day, he walked into the store in 1980. Virginia, she was actually losing her eyesight. Ironic for a person who runs a bookstore, but she was losing her eyesight. And she said to Swami, you know, this store is like my child. This is not a business to me. It's not like I would just, when I'm tired of my child, I would sell him to anyone or give him away. I have to make sure that whoever takes my child from me will raise him properly. So Swami wasn't thinking at all about it. I mean, it wasn't on his radar. She just said, would you buy the store from me? It was almost like, as a personal favor, would you buy the store from me? And Ananda didn't really exist in this area at that point. And in fact, East West was what caused Ananda to move to the Bay Area. We were in San Francisco at that point, but we weren't on the peninsula. So Swamiji, and he tells the story about how you can draw intuition in a moment, that good decisions do not take time, they just take energy. That's how he puts it. Because she asked him, and it was about, she was giving it to us at a good price, but it was $40,000 or so down, which was way more money. We didn't have any of it. I mean, it might as well have been $1 million, because there was nothing. But she just looked at him, he looked at her, and he kind of closed his eyes for a moment and said, yes. And he knew it was the right decision. And he invited Jacqueline and Vasudeva, who were living in San Francisco, if they would come down and manage the store. Jacqueline said, I don't know anything about managing a bookstore. He said, don't worry, we'll figure it out. He said, and his words were, just love your customers and everything else will follow. So for a number of years, David, when did we move to this building? I can't remember. 95, so 15 years. So then it started being an Ananda enterprise, and we had our Sunday services upstairs. People lived upstairs in that old building, and then we had Sunday services up there, and people moved down to live in the bookstore, to run the bookstore, and it just became the center. But it also had this other purpose, which was very important to us. Yogananda's teachings, to which those of us who are part of Ananda are personally devoted. As disciples, we practice Kriya, we're devoted to this line of gurus. But there's this irony that has to be balanced, which is that the teachings of self-realization are universal. The line of gurus we follow is specific, but self-realization is a way of approaching life. And even though we follow through one particular master, all spiritual paths are about expanding your awareness and learning self-realization. So necessarily in our temple, when people come and they really want to know what it is that Ananda follows, we offer them Yogananda's teachings, and even more specifically as Swami Triyananda expressed them. But it's not in our hearts to be sectarian. And so having this bookshop from the very start has always been the perfect balance, because through here we can offer all paths as valid and as important, and put energy behind what can otherwise just be a pleasing sentiment, that there are many truths, one truth but many paths to it. And we can host many other teachers and just present for the whole world to find their own way with great sincerity. And even though those of us who are part of Ananda may have found the path that we believe in, or we believe suits us, this store has always given us the opportunity to be genuinely universal. And I think it's been a benefit in all directions. It's kept Ananda itself more open and flexible, and it's given us this wonderful way to just be part of this community. And Swamiji would often say that as things begin, so they continue. And I think in the 1950s, when the Sharfmans decided to open a metaphysical bookstore, it had to be a labor of love. The only reason that you would do that is because you really loved and believed in what you were offering. And in loyalty to her, who gave us the store and who started it, we've always followed that same advice, and the same advice Swamiji gave to Jacqueline at the very beginning. Just love the people who come in the store, because that's really why we're here. If the store itself can exemplify the spirit of what's being offered here, then it becomes a magnet, it becomes a haven, and it becomes a point of clarity. And the point of clarity in this particular planet at this time is something that's highly necessary. And so the opportunity to be part of that has really been, I think, a great blessing for Ananda. And we're so grateful that Virginia thought to speak to Swamiji all those years ago. And so grateful for generations now of exceedingly dedicated and creative staff who, in this very changing economy, have been able to just keep reinventing the details in order to keep the essential spirit of open inquiry, of genuine spiritual support, of an equality of understanding, providing a forum for truth in all forms, and just an opportunity for loving and kind, high-minded people to mingle. Whether customers, staff, whoever it might be, it's really an atmosphere for truth seekers to come together. And that's what it's always been, and God willing will always be, in the guise of a business, in the guise of a crystal or a gift store, whatever it might be. It's a point where high-minded truth seekers can come together and celebrate on this planet that we have found kindred spirits and an atmosphere in which we can be ourselves. So God bless you all, and with great gratitude to all those who sustain it through your efforts, or sustain it through your patronage, or just your support in whatever way you express it. It's been an honor to be part of it all these decades, and we look forward to sailing on for as long as God is willing.